I'm just sitting here and I'm like, we just saw this here with Christine Brennan. Christine Brennan obviously is a journalist. Nearly 3 days after allegations of racist comments in the Sky Fever game, I'm being told the WNBA has no timeline for completion of its investigation.
They say you should never look a gift horse in the mouth. But what happens when a struggling league finally gets the spotlight it's needed for decades, only to turn on the very star who brought all that attention in the first place? The WNBA stands at the brink of its biggest controversy yet, fueled by allegations that top league officials are systematically sabotaging Caitlyn Clark, a once-in-a-generation talent, boosting women's basketball to unprecedented heights. Yet, behind closed doors, people with power are viewing her meteoric rise as a problem, and the question on everyone's mind is, why?
First of all, again, the Chicago, if this was about something other than this, the Chicago Sky coach made it clear there was no issues in Indiana while he was working there, and he didn't hear anything at the game, and it's all because of stuff on Twitter.
Caitlyn Clark erupted onto the basketball scene like a rocket through the atmosphere. Her scoring prowess, pinpoint passes, and court vision were something even longtime fans of women's hoops had never seen before. She broke college records, sparked a social media phenomenon, and consistently drew record viewership, even in her rookie WNBA season. Sponsors lined up, merchandise bearing her name flew off the shelves, and fans who'd never previously watched a WNBA game suddenly tuned in. But that's exactly where the trouble seems to start. Amid the fanfare, a rumor began swirling. Certain people inside the WNBA front office didn't like all the headlines chanting "Clark, Clark, Clark." Instead of celebrating, it felt like an icy hush had crept in. Suddenly, key league figures were less enthusiastic about her accomplishments. Some up-and-coming players were overshadowed, or so officials argued. But is that reason enough to turn on the brightest star you've ever had?
My only logic is that they are hoping that something bad happens during this game tonight, so that they can say, well, look, this has happened. This is when we were reporting this whole fan base and something happened tonight.
The first major sign that something was amiss came out of nowhere. A bombshell investigation was announced, focused on alleged racist chants or remarks aimed at players during a pivotal Indiana Fever versus Chicago Sky game. In any other situation, you'd assume there was tangible proof before launching such a dramatic probe. Instead, everything was built on a few vague Twitter posts. Fans who actually attended the game insisted they heard nothing beyond your typical shouting and cheering. Even those on the court said the crowd's behavior wasn't out of the ordinary.
It's fair enough. There's no need to announce you had a review in the first place, though. That's just my opinion. There was no need to go out there and announce that you were reviewing anything because, well, there's just no need. Trying to figure out a world where basically everything is recorded, no sound or video, because nothing happened. And again, I'll always say, yes, some person could have said something in the crowd, but as a crowd, as a whole, as a totality of a crowd, nothing happened.
So, why did the league decide to blow this up into a high-profile incident? Some say it was urgently needed to shift the focus away from Clark's jaw-dropping performance that very night, a game in which she not only dominated the scoreboard, but also rewrote the history books with feats no rookie had ever accomplished. According to rumblings on the inside, the real point wasn't stamping out hate speech, because there was none. It was about controlling a narrative they feared was spinning out of their grasp. The tension only built further when the WNBA made this huge announcement about launching a formal investigation, and yet, days later, there was no timeline for when we'd see the results. It was as if they were waiting and hoping for a new scandal to overshadow the entire fiasco. But that was just the tip of what Christine Brennan was about to expose. Astonishing new details then surfaced, courtesy of respected journalist Christine Brennan. A leak of internal WNBA notes painted an unsettling picture. In one damning document, a senior official allegedly wrote the words, "Need to find balance in coverage. CC momentum becoming problematic." To see the league refer to Clark's popularity as problematic left fans and analysts stunned. If any sports league had a breakout star capable of pulling new fans, new money, and new headlines, usually that would be cause for celebration. But these communications went further. They mentioned strategies to clamp down on the Clark storyline whenever it started overshadowing other players' achievements. Media outlets, it seemed, were quietly urged to highlight other storylines, perhaps artificially inflating coverage of less sensational moments. That's not competition, that's PR spin, and if these allegations hold weight, it's sabotage from within, which leaves us with the question everyone's been asking: why? Why sabotage the one phenomenon that's single-handedly boosting the WNBA to mainstream success? Brennan's sources laid out a complex web of motives. Some in the league's old guard apparently worry that if one player towers too high, the rest will be forgotten. They fear that fans who latch onto Clark might not bother to watch other WNBA games. Another explanation is that certain influential figures just don't like the cultural changes Clark has sparked. The WNBA's core fan base, historically smaller and extremely dedicated, is suddenly seeing a wave of newcomers who might not share the same traditions or background. To these insiders, a sudden influx of bandwagon fans, primarily there to watch one star, threatens the existing ecosystem. They loathe the idea of too much success being tied to a single breakout name. And so, ironically, the league that's fought tooth and nail for recognition might now be terrified of unstoppable growth that it can't fully control or direct. All of this begs a deeper question. If the WNBA can't embrace the unstoppable force that is Caitlyn Clark, perhaps it's dooming itself to remain stuck at the same plateau it's hovered at for years. Naturally, the fallout isn't limited to Clark alone. Coaches like Tyler Marsh of the Chicago Sky, who previously worked for Indiana, found themselves dragged into the spotlight when they contradicted official insinuations. Marsh promptly clarified that he heard absolutely nothing offensive or racial during that Fever vs. Sky game, calling it a typical environment. Rowdy fans, yes, but respectful overall. Yet, the damage was done. Indiana's fan base was labeled suspect, as though they'd collectively done something vile. On social media, you could see real fans venting, saying, "This is not who we are. We were excited to cheer on both teams." Even big names like Aaliyah Boston openly supported Clark and lamented how overshadowed her accomplishments became, thanks to these manufactured dramas. Meanwhile, fans on the outside were left exasperated. They'd believed the WNBA wanted mainstream attention. After all, it's been an uphill battle for decades. And now, finally, there's star-level interest from casual and die-hard fans alike. Yet somehow, the league officialdom seemed desperate to police it. For on-court talent, it's a betrayal. For fans, it's a roller coaster of confusion. This strange approach to controlling which storylines get traction also appears to have manifested in officiating. Several coaches, players, and even a former referee confided to Brennan that there were borderline instructions on how to handle Clark in games. Typically, you might see star calls, a tradition in pro sports where big names get the benefit of the doubt on contact. But in Clark's case, the rumor is that officials are purposely swallowing their whistles to blunt her impact. Observers noted that while Clark attracted the most fouls in college ball, in the WNBA, she's suddenly seeing minimal calls. Her frustration became visible in post-game interviews, but she never specifically called out the refs. It was more a sense of puzzlement that the rules seemed to shift once she turned pro. Then there's the coverage angle. Whenever Clark hits a major milestone, like that triple-double that nearly broke the internet, league-run social media channels sometimes ignore it in favor of highlighting a lesser but simultaneously occurring achievement by another player. Only after public blowback might they belatedly acknowledge Clark's record-breaking performance. And what does all of that look like to fans? It looks contrived. It looks like a broom shifting certain stories under the rug and shining a spotlight on others. For a league that's supposed to be hungry for popularity, it's a baffling strategy, to say the least. This entire mess raises looming questions about the WNBA's future. If the league truly is orchestrating an anti-Clark campaign, they're sabotaging not just Clark, but also themselves. Basketball thrives on star power. Just ask the NBA, which soared to global prominence by embracing legendary names. From Magic and Bird to Jordan, Kobe, and LeBron. Insiders say the league is in full panic mode, about how quickly Clark's brand is growing. One staffer confided to Brennan that executives fear one-person dominance might repulse hardcore fans who prefer a balanced spotlight. Another openly wonders how sustainable it is to pin so much hope on one young player. But the real question is, what's the alternative? Do you smother the very phenomenon that could elevate your sport to the next level? Meanwhile, talk has surfaced that the upcoming All-Star game in Indianapolis could be shifted if the sensational controversies around that Fever versus Sky matchup don't die down. Imagine punishing an entire city and fan base based on unverified rumors, all to cast doubt on a game that Caitlyn Clark should be showcasing. The tension is palpable, and the optics are catastrophic. For fans who have patiently waited for the WNBA star to rise, it's like watching a once-in-a-lifetime wave crest, only for the league to erect barricades to keep the wave from crashing on the shore. The irony of the situation is too big to ignore. A league that battled for every scrap of media coverage now finds itself overwhelmed by a massive surge of attention. Rather than harnessing that momentum to grow the game, certain officials appear to see it as a threat to tradition, control, and perceived balance. Yet nobody has ever grown a sport by telling people, don't get too excited about our top talent. Caitlyn Clark's skill and star power have proven unstoppable on the hardwood, but off the court, there's a storm raging, one that threatens to undermine her success and keep the WNBA from fully capitalizing on a golden opportunity. If Christine Brennan's leaks hold true, this is more than a few rogue voices. It's a systematic effort to stifle the game's next big thing. And so the story becomes larger than Clark, larger than a single player or team. It's now about how the WNBA reconciles its hunger for broader impact with the uneasy truth that star players attract lopsided attention. Will the league shift its course and embrace this unstoppable wave of growth? Or will it keep spinning half-truths and investigations that risk alienating the very fans it's tried to court for decades? For now, we can only watch, question, and wait. One thing is certain, the final chapters of this saga haven't been written yet. With more new fans tuning in every day, the WNBA has a choice: pivot toward the next era of women's basketball with open arms, or cling to a smaller, more insular ecosystem. In the end, the outcome will shape not just Caitlyn Clark's future, but the future of an entire league hoping to break its own glass ceiling. The only question left is whether the WNBA is brave enough to seize this moment, or whether it'll squander the once-in-a-generation star who brought it here in the first place.